So that's it with the cylinder top end. Power valves are in, cylinder head on. These 10 cylinder head bolts tightened. They're in the correct order and they have to be tightened up to the correct torque setting. The power valves, the main thing to do, check with the KR1-S when you've got the head tightened down, is that the power valves spin freely. If you get the wrong type of head gasket, if you get a copy of the original Kawasaki head gasket, the copies are often poorly made, and when everything's tightened up, the gasket presses on the power valves quite badly, and you can hardly turn them with you have to put a screwdriver in to twist them round, and when you get that back in the bike, the motor isn't strong enough to turn them. They must spin just nice and free with your fingertips. They'll have a tiny bit of up and down play in this direction, little click there of each one. As the engine heats up, these expand, most of that play disappears, but they don't make any sound when they're on. So that's it basically. This engine is pretty much done now, ready to refit into the frame. So that's the next bit. A few bits and pieces to get swapped around to get the frame and the chassis onto the bench to get this engine fitted into it. I've checked the squish, which again is that gap between the piston and the cylinder head. It's a nice 1mm right at the edge, which is a good safe sort of reading. It'll give it a little bit more performance than the standard engine, or the standard build that Kawasaki made, which the gap on that would have been nearer 2mm, which is going to be very safe. You can run that on any type of fuel, you won't get any problem, but you won't get an awful lot of performance. If you tighten that gap up, you have to be a bit more careful about what fuel you run it on. Really, it wants to be on super unleaded, higher octane fuel. But with that nice tight gap, it means you get well, in simplified terms, a stronger explosion from the combustion, so you get more power out of it. But yeah, that's checked at both sides. You've got to make sure that isn't too tight. If you get much below a millimetre, 0.8 can be ideal. Then you get tighter than that, and you really have to be careful. If it gets too tight, the petrol explodes because the gap is too small. Instead of igniting, as it explodes, it takes the edge off the piston and damages the piston. Then you get much more trouble. So that's it for now. This engine will be sorted out. The next video will probably be refitting it into the chassis on the bench.